Join us now for episode 2, Divorce Breakdown. We're talking all things Frances and divorce. We'll find some humor somewhere. Tune in right now.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, divorce fans. I'm your host, Oriana Leo. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Oriana Leo. And joining me to my left, we have a guest today.
Hi, my name is Ryan. Thank you guys for having me so much.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, a little male perspective. I am Constance Dunn. You can find me on Instagram at Constance Dunn and Twitter at Constance Dunn.
And Fern and Miriam had other obligations this evening, but we're going to jump right in anyways.
Yeah.
So, first thoughts about this episode. What are our thoughts and what are our feelings?
I like it. I like the pace of the show. I think there were several times when I was watching it that I laughed out loud, and I thought it was funny to just kind of see this relationship become this monster of a disaster, I guess. So that was kind of my first thought, was like, wow, this is really interesting to see how quickly Frances has flip-flopped from wanting to be with Robert, not wanting to be with Robert, and then I kind of feel confused. I'm like, what do you want?
Right.
What is it exactly that you were wanting in the end? What is your happy ending at this point? So it's confusing to me.
Yeah, because now she seems so intent on saving everything. And it's always, whenever you're watching Sarah Jessica Parker, she comes in with so much expectation from Sex and the City. As someone who has watched every episode 50 times, you're always... There's a comparison.
Who are you?
Yeah, there's a comparison.
Are you a Miranda Charlotte?
Right.
Carrie? Who are you? I'm asking.
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
You've never asked that question, girl?
Which one are you?
I'm definitely Carrie.
Oh. I've been told that I'm a Charlotte. I don't know.
That's a good thing.
Okay, good.
So what about your thoughts and feelings about this episode?
Well, I think that they're trying to find their tone, and I think that it's a different tone than what we're used to. And there's this comedic overlay, but then there's this hyper-realism that's actually a little dreary. We're not used to seeing her so dreary. I think we're used to seeing her flitting about New York with little tutus and giggling and cocktails, and this is life, overcast,
So does that mean
overcast.
that you think that you felt overcast about this episode? I want to know what you think.
Well, I think that it was a fun episode. It was different, and I think it's one of those very slow-moving, cool episodes that you just have to get used to. I'm still getting used to this.
Okay, I like it. I really enjoyed the episode. I laughed out loud and I cringed. I mean, I felt so awkward for Frances in so many moments because she is so awkward. But as a divorced person, I think it's hilarious. And I think it does help if you have that perspective because the whole idea that someone that you love so much that maybe isn't making you happy, but you would never in a million years think that they would act like that. Right? Like the way that this is breaking down the way that Robert is acting. It's over the top, but that's what happens
When people go to war.
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, you just never. I mean, you never get married with the intent to get a divorce. So, like, obviously they've been married for a long time, but all bets are off because you're tied together, and so you need to cooperate in order to get a divorce.
Right.
And so he has been withholding. Really annoying and frustrating, but it made me laugh. It really made me laugh. So let's talk about Frances and Robert. She is. I mean, what do we think she really wants?
I think at this point it's saving face. Like, I think that she had an out in Julian, and then that kind of turned into like, oh, he wasn't as into it as she was, and so now it's like, oh, wait, let me backtrack because my out is not what I thought.
Right.
So
she doesn't feel comfortable doing this without
an escape plan.
A little stepping stone.
Right. And I think that is what is so frustrating about her, because it's like, or in a lot of characters, I feel like a lot of characters have very selfish behaviors. I feel like a lot of people are so selfish on the show, and I think that's her thing, is that she needs something that's kind of like a safety cushion. And now that Julian is kind of shaky, it's like, oh wait, let me backtrack and go to Robert and try to make this work, and he's just not having it. And I feel like he is being a child about it. I feel like he's being such a baby, and it's like, you're an adult, you're a man, like, please don't be so petty about this. Like, I mean, I understand you're hurting.
He's not a man, though.
No, he's not.
That,
no,
I mean,
not
the way he's acting,
he's not being,
like,
no. Like, it's sad, but.
Yeah. What does she want? I think she wants to be happy. I think she has been married for a long time, and she's not quite sure what happiness means for her.
Yeah. I don't think she knows what she wants, to be honest, in my opinion. I think that she wants to be happy. She wants to be treated better, right? She wants to have romance in her life. But it's easy to leave someone if you already have someone else, right?
Right,
It's
right.
probably not the best idea.
Don't do that at home.
But it's very common because you don't know how bad it is at home sometimes until someone else shows you how it could be. And then your eyes open up and you go, oh, yeah, maybe it doesn't have to be so bad.
Right.
But I do agree with you about her being selfish because I wish she would own her decision. And she's not owning it, right? Like she's with waffling, and we understand. I mean, let's talk about Robert. Let's talk about some of the things he's done. He's so incredibly passive aggressive, right? I mean, but it's over the top passive aggressive, where he's being a child. He's making sure he has the upper hand,
Right.
right?
He locked her out for one.
Locking her out, putting her purse in the garbage with a banana peel.
Yeah.
Going to the hospital and having that whole scene.
Oh, it was so awkward.
So awkward.
It was very awkward to watch them. Like, him clearly ignored them. There was so much tension, and you could tell that Diane didn't know what was going on. It was very, very
When he
terrible.
calls out Dallas,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Right.
And he calls her, what does he call her?
An old harpy.
An old harpy. But here's the thing, you guys. If the genders were reversed, if this was a female who was rightly pissed off because her husband's having a long-term affair, we'd probably be like, yeah, girl, go
You're totally
ahead.
right.
And that was
You're totally right.
That's
Like,
one thing
stick
I
it up for the
like.
guys.
But I like that about this show because I think this is the first or one of the first times I've ever seen the woman being the one who stepped out, and I think it's kind of cool to see that, you know, it's I guess the normalization of the sexes, like, because that happens.
right.
It's not always
It
guys who step. It
happens.
does.
We don't hear about it as much,
Right.
right? Because
'Cause-
those are all the
Well,
statistics.
But I also feel like it's like guys we tend to we're too proud. Like, no.
Well,
that
yeah,
didn't
if your
happen to
girl
me.
stepped out on you, you're not going to go tell everyone.
Right.
Right.
But the
Right.
girl is probably going to be like, hey, cheated. Like,
Exactly.
Call everybody.
Exactly. So I think it's just interesting to see this side of it, and to see, you know, that men can be just as petty sometimes. Because I feel like sometimes women get a bad rap, and I don't think it's a guy-girl thing. I think it's just hurt people.
Yes.
And hurt
Yeah.
people do terrible things to people.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
And-
I think I was just going to say it's
sorry.
really funny about how her girlfriends react to this whole situation, right? I mean, they're just, you know, Diane, first of all, not helping
Not at
with her,
all.
like, oh, the guy and at Columbia University, the professor, exactly who this guy is telling her husband. So now he knows.
Right.
And then we've got, what's her name, Dallas, standing
Yeah.
up for her.
Right. It seems like Dallas seems to be the one who is more invested in others, whereas Diane seems to be also very selfish and consumed in her own world, where there were several times when Frances tried to reach out to Diane and be like, oh, she would like kind of passive aggressively say, my day's been kind of, and then Diane would always find a way to turn it
Right.
back to her. And so she never got the chance to really open up to her. And it seems like Dallas seems to be that friend who like actually listens.
And in her
tries to
defense,
help.
when you're going through something really terrible and someone asks you how you are, your friend, hopefully you're honest.
Right.
But it's not a competition.
Let me ask you
Yeah.
guys, what do you think about these characters overall? I'm not warming up to any of them, to none of this, to be honest. You asked me a few
Yeah.
times specifically, what do I think
Yeah.
personally? I have yet to get into the show. I think I might be, but I think it's going to take.
It's gonna take time.
because there's just something. The balance isn't right. The tone isn't right. They're trying to do shtick, but they're trying to do real.
And it's not
Why is
blending well.
Diane not interesting? Because she's a cardboard SNL cutout
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to feel anything for her?
Right. Well, I mean,
They're all-
I'm annoyed with her. I have
Yeah.
feelings for these characters. Honestly, I
Do
do.
you?
I would say that it's hard. You know, the subject matter is so hard that literally the woman who wrote this, her husband didn't watch any of the episodes after the pilot because
Oh.
he couldn't, because it was so uncomfortable, because it's so real.
Does
Yeah.
it seem real to you?
Seems real to me.
Okay.
I feel like, because I think falling out of love is a real thing. I think,
Sure,
because they're
that
definitely
part.
like, I mean, as we grow, we change, and sometimes you grow together with a person, but there's sometimes when it's just like, you know, we have become different
Yeah.
people. And I think it's okay, but I think that that's why they try to add that shtick to it, because they have to sweeten that bitterness, because I think that that's a bitter
Okay,
pill to
that
swallow.
makes sense. I
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I think it's that's hard to accept, because it is very true that there are people that you can love someone and not be in love with someone. There are people that I love to this day, but it's like, I understand why we're not together anymore, because we just are not the same.
Well, I think it's going to be a challenge. I mean, I did Hello Ladies a few years ago. It was my first show here at AfterBuzz. It was Stephen Merchant, and we didn't like it. It was really tough. The tone of it was he was just so desperate, and like, he wasn't a lovable character. There weren't any lovable characters,
Right.
really. And so it was really tough to feel jazzed about it. I do, because I personally relate to this show, I do find it interesting and funny, but you have to be comfortable with the subject matter.
Right.
And dealing with, I mean, it's just not a fun subject.
no.
It isn't, and I love getting into things and in a real way. I guess it's the interjection of humor feels forced. It's not a. It doesn't feel like an organic blend yet, and that might be just because it's finding its sea legs. It's a new show, and it's a different type of show, you know.
Okay, well, Ryan, which moments did you laugh out loud at?
I think I laughed a lot at kind of some of the things that Robert would say, and I think I laughed because of how ridiculous he was. Like, now that you put it in that context, I think he is a little over the top in some of the things he'll say or do. Like, when he walked in and he just kind of was like, oh, that's why you're... Well, and that was kind of weird for him to call out Dallas's husband for being gay. I was like, oh, that seems kind of really aggressive in a weird way.
Or pretending to be gay?
Yeah, which was a weird... He said pretend.
Pretend.
And I think it was a weird way to throw that piece of information out, because obviously we didn't have that as the audience,
Yeah.
so... I think some of the things he said was funny. The conversation when he was at work and his associates appeared to have... They were like, what are you doing?
I definitely laughed out
That was
loud at
pretty
that.
funny. So I think Robert is funny, but I also feel like he is a bit ridiculous when I think about it in realistic terms. I feel like
FYI,
he did
he's
that
not
hard.
being ridiculous.
Oh,
this
no,
happens
that-
all the time. People go nuts.
Really?
Someone says, I'm
Oh,
divorcing
no.
you, and you like light their house on fire. I mean, people do insane things.
Right.
And I could tell you stories about my friends of what has happened, of whether it's your ex starts stalking you,
Oh my
or
gosh, wow.
steals your stuff, or, I mean, stuff that you would never,
Really?
ever imagine stealing money.
Oh, no.
I've heard this before, that people during divorces, that just stuff that people are genuinely surprised how someone
How
become-
bad and ugly it gets.
Yeah.
And
You
especially
never
for
know.
mellow people, like you never know.
You never know.
And I've heard it so much, I believe what you're
So,
saying.
so from my perspective, I'm watching this going like, no, this is. I mean, the fact that he hasn't lit anything on fire or done anything, like he's very passive though. Like he's passive aggressive and he's not aggressive, which makes it more funny.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think that it's that unusual. I really liked my favorite scene of the whole show. I think was the you pussy out moment with the realtor.
Oh, yeah.
Right, that
Right,
was-
so she goes, and I love that she's calling her out and saying like, "We've been doing this for how long?
Yeah.
Are you?" And so it makes me kind of wonder about her. Like, so if she hasn't been pulling the trigger on her own life and her own stuff,
That's the pattern.
well, no wonder she's unhappy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and looking for a lover to make it spice things up. It's
Right.
like, how about get your own house right? Not even the
Right.
marriage, but like your own life.
Right.
And so obviously it is a bad time right now for her to go ahead with this, but you know, having this happen many, many times, it's like, okay, well, maybe she hasn't been investing in herself.
And then I feel like that it kind of makes it seem like there's a pattern of her not making decisions, or at least like you were saying, because just she doesn't own her decisions.
About
it's
to
like,
do it,
Yeah,
pulls it
I
away.
know. I think that
So-
is hinting at her in a pattern that she probably has of, oh, I do this, but I'm not going to commit.
Well, I think that's a great pickup because that's essentially what she's doing, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a life-altering decision. This is a huge thing, and she's waffling,
Right.
right? Now let's talk about their kids with Francis and Robert. Like, I get so verklempt over this because he is threatening to poison them, right?
Yeah.
And then
Right.
he's, of course, passive-aggressively saying, well, we have to worry about them
Right.
first, which is also totally typical of someone who's trying to take control of the situation, right? Like, well, we have to take care of this, and then throw her under the bus.
Yeah, I thought that was weird because in the beginning he says, or at the end of the last episode, he says, I'm going to make your kids hate you.
Yes.
But then at this episode, he goes, we have to make sure the
Right.
kids are the first priority and that they're neutral. And it's like he doesn't listen to anyone that's not him.
He doesn't even listen to himself.
No, obviously
mean,
not.
Right.
He doesn't take his own advice.
When she tells him about the gallery,
Yeah.
he just totally glosses over
Right.
it.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
he's
so
talking
that's-
about granite before.
So,
He's
Exactly.
like, that's
So
cool.
I think that's another great example of like she's sharing and then she shares in return and it's not okay.
Yeah.
But that's also because she did do wrong. I mean,
Right.
we have to
Yes.
acknowledge that, you know, he did say if things were going great, this probably wouldn't have happened.
That was interesting.
Which was
And
finally.
This is the first 48, right?
Right,
The first 48
right.
hours.
Yes,
yeah, it
It's
is.
like, Hi, I've had a lover, and it's like, okay, let's talk about how we're going to divide our assets. I'm
Yeah.
totally fine with that. It's not. He's going to be really
gonna
pissed
take-
off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I liked that he did take that moment to at least show a glimpse of ownership. You know,
Yes.
that he was like, maybe I did have some part in this.
But
Not
then
that
he wants to go to school and pick up the kids and tell them that
yeah.
they're getting a divorce,
Right,
which is
right.
not appropriate at all.
No.
And we see this
Yeah.
great little awkward comedy of her getting there at the same time and having the damn dog in the car, which ends up
Birthday
being,
dog.
Exactly.
you know, which the kids end up loving and sort of saves the day for the moment. Although, I don't know what, I don't know where this is going to go. Do we think the kids know anything?
I think kids tend to have a way, because I'm a child of divorce, so it was one of those things that, like, when I was younger, it was something that I think I felt and sensed.
Yes.
But there was always kind of this, like, youthful hope of, like, oh, but it'll be okay.
Right, and she even says that to her in bed.
Yeah.
She says to her daughter at the end, "It's going to be okay," and it's kind of, I felt like she was telling herself that.
Right.
Because her daughter doesn't know necessarily there's anything wrong.
Right. I think that they have an idea, but you're right. I don't think that they know.
What do you think?
Oh yeah, I think that the children
No.
sense it, and I think that they have these children cast at a certain age and written in at a certain, because that's the age that you're moving away from being a baby
Yes.
and hanging on to mommy.
Yeah.
It's that time when you're acting kind of hard, maybe.
Yes.
I was. You're,
I
you're-
was.
I'm not a kid anymore,
Yeah.
so you're just going to be hard and not have these little vulnerable moments.
Right.
As
Yeah.
much,
So let's talk about, we talked about Diane and Dallas. We talked about how maybe we're not feeling them.
Right.
So that was kind of what I
Yeah.
got from you. I
Right.
do think that Diane is an unlovable character. So I don't expect anyone to love her. Like, she's
Right.
kind of disgusting. The person that makes everything about her.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's about her, super self-absorbed. But do we think there's hope for her, or that this character will get deeper?
Right.
Because I agree with you, it's very much a cardboard cutout.
Right.
And maybe that's on purpose, because she is so vapid and self-obsessed.
Right.
Doesn't it take you out of the scene of realness? That's the problem. The minute you're going to feel that we're doing something real, here's this like caricature that comes in and does this very like self-reflexive, this is a TV
It
show,
doesn't
this is
play-
Molly Shannon.
right, it
This
doesn't
is
play
a
that well.
problem with this show.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Sarah Jessica Parker coming back to TV after 12 years should be a huge thing, and I'm scoping out and looking at the media on this. This is not a runaway hit, at least in its first couple
No,
weeks.
but
Right,
it's called
right.
Divorce. I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to be a
Yeah.
runaway hit.
Right.
I mean,
The subject matter alone.
it's a subject matter. I mean, if it was about falling in love, it would be much more
Fashion.
popular.
Yeah, exactly. Or fashion.
falling
Like,
in love.
whoa.
Right, but this is real, right? And Sex and the
right.
City wasn't real at all. There was nothing real about it.
Right. It was
Right.
fabulous.
It was fabulous, and
That's why we loved it.
no one lives that life really,
Right.
And if they do, they're certainly not struggling writers.
Right.
Yeah.
One column a week.
Yeah, I mean,
Tour.
yeah.
Living on what the Upper West Side. Everyone does that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I read actually was that she's taking these characters that are anti-Carrie characters.
Good.
Because she did that for so long,
Right.
and she really wants to, do something else. But I do think, like you're saying, audiences may have a harder time with it. I love it. What was that movie? There was a Christmas movie she was in.
Oh.
That was really good, and she was also really like unlikable and awkward in it.
It was like 2 years. It wasn't that long ago. I remember
I don't
the movie,
know.
But,
Fans let us know.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked it because she was not lovable. Like, she was
Right.
obnoxious. Like, I really didn't like her. What I like about her in this series is the realness and the awkwardness. Like, when she's on the old phone, she goes to the neighbor and she's always like, "Oh, what a lovely old phone you have!" Like,
vintage.
so awkward.
that's not really appropriate. And then she's cussing out her husband, and the
no.
kids are there with their orange juice. Everyone's like,
Like,
and then
oh.
just to make everything worse, she has to say like, "Sorry, this is of course a non-white family.
Yeah.
Sorry, we haven't had you over yet."
Yeah, like, oh no.
She just piled on everything. That's so awful about this maybe socioeconomic
Yeah.
and like cultural phenomenon.
But I also love it. I love how real it is, because I feel like those awkward moments are normal and natural in life, and I think it's funny to see how awkward we are and how inappropriate we can be as
Right.
people. in
Absolutely.
life. And I think I think that's why I am into it, because I appreciate how there are moments that are truly a part of everyday life, and it's awesome.
And they write to her strengths. She does
Yes.
those scenes. They have them almost formulaic. She does a good job. And I
Yeah.
just have to say, I love her face as she's matured. I
Yes,
liked her a lot
I
in Sex and the
agree.
City.
Yes.
And this is they're filming a lot in the snow. They're filming a lot outdoors. I love how she's gotten like a very character-ish face in the hair. I think she looks very beautiful. We don't get to see that a lot, particularly in mainstream actors. We
Right.
don't get to see a woman age kind of naturally. I think we see see it a lot more in European shows, which I'm a huge fan of, Danish shows, where they put the camera right in the face, and you can start to get, your eye starts to get used to the beauty of all different types of faces, particularly with women. I like to see different types. They tend to be quite narrow in a lot of mainstream American TV.
I do think one of the things that's hard too, as far as we are being cued to wrap up, but we started pretty late, so we're gonna wait. So I think what's interesting is, like, you were talking about costume last time.
Right.
I think what is hard about this show is that it does not just the subject matter, but like you were saying last episode, the tone of the wardrobe. Like even her hair is so much darker with like a little tiny highlight. There's nothing like really bright and cheery.
Right.
It's very neutral tones and like.
And I do think it's hard to be excited about that. And so I think that's the challenge. I mean, obviously for your experience, but for the greater audience, I'm really curious what you guys think at home. Excuse me. What you guys think at home. Is this a dreary, drab show? Like, how do you feel about the energy? I'm not depressed or anything at the end.
No.
I'm giggling the whole time. But if it left you feeling that way, would you want to watch another episode?
I don't think I would. I can imagine. I can see that aesthetically, it does kind of have a darker, especially
It's
in
winter.
contrast. Yeah,
It's cold. You know?
The pacing is slower too.
Yeah.
It's definitely interesting, and it brings up such great points about relationships.
Yes, it does. I can't wait to see what happens next time. What did we see on the previews? They were talking. It looks like they go to couples counseling. Did you guys see that?
I ended up not seeing the previews.
Yeah.
It cut off before, but like the last thing that happens is that we see Robert look up Julian, and so I'm interested to see that confrontation because I'm sure he's going to confront him. I just know he is.
Yeah, and it's good to see that in that picture. I mean, if you've ever been in an experience where you have to see your not competitor but your love rival, call it whatever, and you're like, I'm going to puke because it's either going to be one of two things. It's going to be like they're super hot,
It's like,
or they're not as hot.
And you're like, what? How did this happen to me?
And you can turn it any way, even if they're not like very hot. You'll be like, well, what was it then?
Yeah.
You know, your mind's going to go to the races. It's going to be. It's never going to end.
Okay, and also, I mean, for him, he's the one that's scorned, right? And no man, I'm sorry, is okay with his wife sleeping with another man. Like, this is absolutely, this is not a good thing. I'm not looking forward to I guess I am looking forward to Robert breaking down and falling apart, but oh my gosh, it's so cringeworthy. Well, you'll hear about it next time. You guys can find me on Twitter at Miss Oriana Leo, Instagram at Oriana Leo. And now let's go down the panel.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Ryann with 2 N's Graham.
Yeah, Constance. You can find me at Instagram at Constance Dunn, Twitter, Constance Dunn.
Till next time, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.